of Anger, Book 1, 1900, translated by Aubrey Stewart, by Seneca. From Lucius Annaeus Seneca, Minor Dialogues together with a Dialogue on Clemency, translated by Aubrey Stewart, page 48 through 75, Bonn's Classical Library Edition, spelled B-O-H-N. London, George Bell and Sons, 1900, scanned and digitized by Google from a copy maintained by the University of Virginia, uploaded to Wikipedia, and downloaded by yours truly. The third book of the Dialogues of Lucius Annaeus Seneca, also known as Seneca the Elder, addressed to Novatus of Anger, Book 1. You have demanded of me, Novatus, that I should write how anger may be soothed, and it appears to me that you are right in feeling a special fear of this passion, which is above all others hideous and wild. For the others have some alloy of peace and quiet, but this consists wholly in action and the impulse of grief, raging with an utterly inhuman lust for arms, blood, and tortures, careless of itself provided it hurts another, rushing upon the very point of the sword and greedy for revenge even when it drags the avenger to ruin with itself. Some of the wisest of men have, in consequence of this called anger, a short madness. For it is equal devoid of self-control, regardless of decorum, forgetful of kinship, obstinately engrossed in whatever it begins to do, deaf to reason and advice, excited by trifling causes, awkward at perceiving what is true and just, and very like a falling rock which breaks itself to pieces upon the very thing which it crutches. That you may know that they whom anger possesses are not sane, look at their appearance. For as they are distinct symptoms which mark madmen, such as a bold and menacing air, a gloomy brow, a stern face, a hurried walk, restless hands, change-colored, quick and strongly drawn breathing, the signs of angry men too are the same. Their eyes blaze and sparkle, their whole face is a deep red, with the blood which boils up from the bottom of their heart. Their lips quiver, their teeth are set, their hair bristles and stands on end, their breath is labored and hissing, their joints cracked, and they twist them about. They groan, bellow, burst into scarcely intelligible talk. They often clap their hands together and stamp the ground with their feet. And their whole body is highly strung and plays those tricks which mark a distraught mind so as to furnish an ugly and shocking picture of self-perversion and excitement. You cannot tell whether this vice is more execrable or more disgusting. Other vices can be concealed, for the most part, and cherished in secret, for the most part. Anger shows itself openly, and appears in the countenance, and the greater it is, the more plainly it boils forth. Do you not see how in all animals certain signs appear before they proceed to mischief, and how their entire bodies put off their usual quiet appearance, and stir up their ferocity? Boars foam at the mouth, and sharpen their teeth by rubbing them against trees. Bulls toss their horns in the air and scatter the sand which blows off their feet. Lions growl. The necks of enraged snakes swell. Mad dogs have a sullen look. There is no animal so hateful and venomous by nature that it does not, when seized by anger, show additional fierceness. I know well that the other passions can hardly be concealed, and that lust and fear and boldness give signs of their presence, and may be discovered beforehand. For there is no one of the stronger passions that does not affect the countenance. What then is the difference between them and anger? Why, that the other passions are visible, but that this is conspicuous. Next, if you choose to view its results and the mischief it does, no plague has cost the human race more dear. You will see slaughterings and poisonings, accusations and counter-accusations, the sackings of cities, the ruins of whole peoples, the persons of princes sold into slavery by auctions, torches applied to roof, and fires not merely confined within city walls, but making whole tracts of country glow with hostile flame and conflagration. See the foundations of the most celebrated cities hardly now to be discerned. They were ruined by anger. View Troy. See deserts extending for many miles without an inhabitant. They have been desolated by anger. See all the chief whom traditions mentions as instances of ill fate. Anger stabbed one of them in his bed, struck down another, though he was protected by the sacred rights of hospitality, tore another to pieces in the very home of the laws in the sight of the crowded forum, bade one shed his own blood by the parricide hand of his own son. Another to have his royal throat cut by the hand of a slave, another to stretch out his limb on the cross. And hitherto I am speaking merely of individual cases. What if you were to pass from the consideration of those single men, against whom anger has broken out to view, whole assemblies cut down by the sword, the people butchered by the soldiery let loose upon them, and the whole nations condemned to death in one common ruin, as though by men who either freed themselves from our charge or despised our authority? Why, wherefore, is the people angry with gladiators, and so unjust as to think itself wronged if they do not die cheerfully? It thinks itself scorned, and by looks, gestures, and excitement turns itself from a mere spectator into an adversary. Everything of this sort is not anger, but the semblance of anger, like that of boys who want to beat the ground when they have fallen upon it, and who often do not even know why they are angry, but are merely angry without any reason, or having received any injury, yet not without some semblance of injury received, or without some wish to exact a penalty for it. Thus they are deceived by the likeness of blows, and are appeased by the pretended tears of those who deprecate their wrath, and thus an unreal grief is healed by an unreal revenge. We often are angry, says our adversary, not with men who have hurt us, but with men who are going to hurt us. So you may be sure that anger is not born of injury. It is true that we are angry with those who are going to hurt us, but they do already hurt us in intention, and one is going to do an injury is already doing it. The weakest of men, he argues, are often angry with the most powerful. So you may be sure that anger is not a desire to punish their antagonist, for men do not desire to punish him when they cannot hope to do so. In the first place, I speak of a desire to inflict punishment, not a power to do so. Now men desire even what they cannot obtain. In the next place, no one is so slow in station as not to be able to hope to inflict punishment even upon the greatest of men. We all are powerful for mischief. Aristotle's definition differs little from mine, for he declares anger to be a desire to repay suffering. It would be a long task to examine the differences between his definition and mine. It may be urged against both of them that wild beasts become angry without being excited by injury and without any idea of punishing others or requiting them with pain. For even though they do these things, they are not what they aim at doing. These are not what they are aimed at doing. We must admit, however, that neither wild beast nor any other creature except man is subject to anger. For whilst anger is the foe of reason, it nevertheless does not arise in any place where reason cannot dwell. Wild beasts have impulses, fury, cruelty, combativeness. They have not anger, any more than they have luxury. Yet they indulge in some pleasures with less self-control than human beings. Do not believe the poet, who says the boar his wrath forgets, the stag forgets the hounds, the bear forgets how midst the herd he leaped with frantic bounds. When he speaks of beasts, the poet that is, being angry he means that they are excited, roused up, for indeed they know no more how to be angry than they know how to pardon. Dumb creatures have not human feelings, but have certain impulses which resemble them. For it were not so, if they could not feel love and hate, they would likewise be capable of friendship and enmity, of disagreement and agreement. Some traces of these qualities exist even in them, though properly all of them, whether good or bad, belong to the human breast alone. To no creature besides man has been given wisdom, foresight, industry, and reflection. To animals, not only human virtues, but even human vices are forbidden. Their whole constitution, mental and bodily, is unlike that of humans, unlike that of human beings. In them, the royal and leading principle is drawn from another source. For instance, they possess a voice, yet not a clear one, but indistinct and incapable of forming words, a tongue, but one which is fettered, and not sufficiently nimble for complex movements. So too they possess intellect, the greatest attribute of all, but in a rough and inexact condition. It is consequently able to grasp those visions and semblance which rouse it to action, but only in a cloudy and indistinct fashion. It follows from this that their impulses and outbreaks are violent, and that they do not feel fear, anxieties, grief, or anger, but some semblance of these feelings. Wherefore they quickly drop them, and adopt the converse of them. They graze after showing the most vehement rage and terror, and after frantic bellowing and plunging, they straightway sink into quiet sleep. What anger has been sufficiently explained. The difference between it and irascibility is evident. It is the same as that between a drunken man and a drunkard, between a frightened man and a coward. It is possible for an angry man not to be irascible. An irascible man may sometimes not be angry. I shall omit the other varieties of anger, which the Greeks distinguished by various names, because we have no distinct words for them in our language, Latin. Although we call men bitter and harsh, and also peevish, frantic, clamorous, surly, and fierce, all of which are different forms of irascibility. Among these you may class sulkiness, a refined form of irascibility, for there are some sorts of anger which go no further than noise. While some are lasting as they are common, some are fierce indeed, but inclined to be sparing of words. Some expend themselves in bitter words and curses. Some do not go beyond complaining and turning one's back. Some are great, deep-seated, and brood within a man. There are 1,000 other forms of a multiform evil. We have now finished our inquiry as to what nature is, whether it exists in any other creature besides man, what the difference is between it and irascibility, and how many forms it possesses. Let us now inquire whether anger be in accordance with nature, and whether it be useful and worth entertaining in some measure. Whether it be according to nature will become evident. If we consider man's nature, then what is more gentle, while it is in its proper condition? Yet what is more cruel than anger? What is more affectionate to others than man? Yet what is more savage than them than anger? Mankind is born for mutual assistance, anger for mutual ruin. The former loves society, the latter loves estrangement. The one loves to do good, the other to do harm, the one to help even strangers, the other to attack even its dearest friends. The one is ready even to sacrifice itself for the good of others, the other to plunge into peril provided it drags others with it. Who, then, can be more ignorant of nature than he who classes this cruel and hurtful vice as belonging to her best and most polished work? Anger, as we have said, is eager to punish, and that such a desire should exist in man's peaceful breast is least of all according to his nature, for human life is founded on benefits and harmony, and is bound together into an alliance for the common help of all, not by terror, but by love towards one another.